Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Mod Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new beam weapon introduced in Update 15, the Opticor. And the Opticor is a charge-based beam weapon with a huge base damage of 500, making it one of the hardest hitting weapons in the game, only just losing out to the Ogrids in raw damage per hit. And the weapon damage is pretty much all puncture with a little bit of impact and slash as well, which means the weapon is super effective against Grineer, but the raw damage of the puncture is still going to carry you through missions against other factions as well. The weapon itself has a charge time of 0.3 seconds, which can be boosted using fire rate mods. At the time I put in this video out, there is a bug that doesn't show the increase in fire rate when you put the mods on the weapon, but believe me, it is a huge difference. Still, on the topic of that charge time and the charge mechanics of this weapon, the weapon does 500 damage at half charge, but at a full charge the weapon's going to discharge immediately. However, it's going to do a whopping 1000 damage per shot, effectively doubling the damage output of this weapon, which is absolutely insane. The weapon also comes with a very impressive reload speed, has infinite range, a small AoE damage that can affect enemies close to the beam, it's a hit scan weapon, and it comes with a V polarity, so really help with that modding. It also comes with a giant ammunition count of 540, although I can imagine that being rebalanced fairly quickly, as it is a little excessive, since you're never going to run into ammunition problems. The Opticor really is what you're going to get if you were going to combine the Lanka, the Ogris, and the Spartan laser from Halo. The Opticor isn't without a couple of downsides, however, even though they are pretty slight. Firstly, you're going to need to get used to the rhythm of the weapon, since releasing the charge too early will not only stop a round from being fired, but will also cause the Opticor to jam for what seems like the rest of the charge cycle, and can really mess up mid-mission, especially if you're being overwhelmed by enemies. Other than that, the only other real downside is the low damage that the AoE does, which tails off from the point of impact, but to be honest, this weapon is all about the insanely ridiculous single target damage and not its ability to kill groups of people. The Opticor isn't a cheap weapon either, requiring 5 field run, 20 gallium, a former and 600 cryotic, making this only the second weapon in the game that uses cryotic in its construction. Now, the blueprint is only available from the dojo, so you will need to be a member of a clan with the correct research done to be able to pick up the blueprint for this weapon. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Opticor. And we've got 3 mods that are going to remain the same on all 3 of our builds. We're going to put Serration in that V polarity, we're again going to go with Split Chamber, and then Vile Acceleration, which is the new corrupt mod that drops from the Orican Derelict Vaults. Now for our Grineer build, we're going to go with Speed Trigger to further buff that fire rate, and we're going to go with a Hellfire and a Stormbringer to bring up radiation damage against those heavily armoured units in the Grineer. Now moving on to our Corpus build, again Serration, Split Chamber, Vile Acceleration and Speed Trigger. And then we're going to go with Cryo Rounds and Stormbringer to bring out Magnetic. Now the reason I don't go with Poison rather than Magnetic is because that puncture has such a negative effect on the shielded units in the Corpus that you really need that magnetic damage just to cut through those shields, and it really does hit a lot harder than going just for that poison damage. Now for our Void build, we're going to go Serration, Split Chamber, Vile Acceleration, but instead we're going to go with a Shred. Now, although you lose a little bit of fire rate, you gain that punch through, which is really useful in the Void because a lot of enemies have a tendency to stack up in a line, and that really can multiply your damage quite a lot, even though you lose a little bit of that fire rate. And the reason we're able to do that is we're going to go with Malignant Force and Stormbringer to bring up corrosive damage. Now Malignant Force also has less mod points, but also will buff your status up to a very nice 40%, which is awesome for just having that one single mod on there. So now onto my recommendation and whether I feel this weapon is worth the cost, and whether it's worth investing a catalyst into. And the answer to that is absolutely 100% yes, it is completely worth it. When I first looked at this weapon and looked at the charge mechanic with the lack of punch through as default, I have to admit I was worried. I was worried that because of the charge and by the fact that it was only single target, it wouldn't really have a place in Warframe, a game where killing quickly is something that the top weapons do and do very well. I thought the Opticor wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace set by the Soma or the Bolter Prime, but I was wrong, and it absolutely manages to hold its own. The 1000 damage at full charge when you combine it with all the damage mods plus elemental mods, plus potentially crit mods, this weapon turns from being into a heavy hitter to being an absolute single target beast. And if you combine it further with Shred, a multi-target beast as well, that can last well up into high levels in survivals and defense, with the added bonus that you cannot damage yourself with it, unlike other hard-hitting weapons like the Ogris and the Penta. The advantage of the Opticor really lies in its flexibility. It comes with 15% status chance and 15% crit chance, which when you put a combined build on the weapon can really transform it. The introduction of Forma can only serve to improve the weapon hugely. Because of that 15% crit chance, although at max crit chance you're only realistically looking at 37% crit chance, still that's 1 in 3 shots that you're going to crit on, with a 4.4 times multiplier when you do crit if you put the crit damage mod on, which is absolutely huge. Now the beauty of this weapon is that there is absolutely no best build for it. In the time that I've spent making this video, myself and my clanmates have come up with at least 4 different ways that this could be modded, each with their advantages and disadvantages. So would I recommend putting Forma onto the weapon? Absolutely yes I would, and it's going to need about 4 Forma, potentially 5 Forma to get the most out of this weapon, and I think every one of them is worth it. So in essence, the Spartan Laser, the Opticor, is a charge based extremely heavy hitter that is a giant amount of fun, which is in my books more important than being one of the best weapons in the game or not, whether it is fun to use, and the Opticor has that in spades. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.